In this lesson, we'll modify the routes file to add new resources. The Rails router dispatches URLs to a controller's action. It can also generate paths and URLs so you don't have to hard-code strings in your view files. Your application's routes are contained in the file config/routes.rb. Here's an example of what they might look like. By using resource routing, you can quickly declare all of the common routes for a given resourceful controller. By writing a single line of code, you can declare all the routes for your index, show, new, edit, create, update, and destroy actions. For API-only applications, it's unlikely you'll have a new or edit action because those are the responsibility of the client application. When your Rails application receives an incoming HTTP request for, let's say, delete customer/17, it will ask the router to map it to a controller action by finding the first matching route. In our case, it will be resources, customers. For this route, Rails would dispatch the request to the destroy action on the customer's controller with ID 17 in the params. This one line creates the 7 different RESTful routes in our application. In a Rails API application, it will create 5 routes. You can declare multiple resources at once. This code is the same as this. This example shows the use of the singular resource versus the plural resources. This implies that there's no need to identify the cart resource with an ID because there's only ever one cart resource. The ID parameter would not make sense in the context of a customer's cart because the customer only has one cart. Rails provides this singular resource method to handle those situations. Another common use case is a user's profile or a website status page. Primarily, it means that there won't be a need for an index action and that the database ID is either unimportant or will be resolved some other way outside of the route. You can manually route a specific path to a specific controller and action. The to field expects a string in the controller action format. If you want to organize groups of controllers under a namespace, for example, admin, you can place these controllers under the app/controllers/admin directory and group them in your router like this. This means that a GET request to admin/articles would route to admin/articles index. Often, some resources are the logical children of other resources. In this case, the customer model can have many different addresses, and each address belongs to a specific customer. Even the routing can reflect the appropriate nesting by adding this to your route declarations. Take note that resources should never be nested more than one level deep. Usually, the default routes and helpers generated by resources are an adequate start. However, Rails allows you to customize the resourceful helpers. This code explicitly wires all of the RESTful actions for accounts to the user's controller instead of the default accounts controller. If the controller is namespaced, use the directory notation. By including the as option above, you override the normal naming for the named route helpers. Now, user's path would be used instead of account's path. As we've highlighted elsewhere, Rails automatically creates routes for the 7 default RESTful actions: index, show, new, create, edit, update, and destroy. You can use only or except to create only your specified routes. Take note that using only and except to generate only the routes you actually need can speed up the routing process for your application. Together, we'll now go to our projects directory and generate a new Rails application. Now we're going to create a database using Rails DB create. Next, we need to create a user model. Then we need to run the migration that was generated. We're going to start by adding explicit routes for CRUD operations on the user's resource. To do that, we need to update config/routes to include the following. Now let's run bundle exec Rails routes to see route output for the changes that have been made. Our API should be versioned, and we'll want to namespace our controllers and routes for path-based versioning. We want our paths to look like API/v1/users instead of just /users. We can solve this by using namespacing. The resources method allows us to simplify our routing file by including common actions and routes with one line. Switch to the resources method in the routes file. If we run Rails routes now, we'll see that we gained several additional routes that we did not have previously when we manually specified each route. Next, let's limit the actions available on the user resource. We do not really want users deleting themselves. Now, you need to do the following on your own. Create a new Rails application in your projects directory. Then create a database and generate a user model with a name of type string and email of type string. Run the migration that was generated. Use resources to add the 7 RESTful routes for users. Namespace the routes so that the routes will be prepended with API/v1. Remove the destroy route from the user's resource.